You have bewitched me, body and soul, and I love you.
This declaration of love is poetic. It's one of the many reasons that Mr. Darcy's character is so loved. Watching his transformation from someone who originally only spoke in insults into a man who vulnerably expresses his heart is a fulfilling arc to follow. Today we're going to look at 5 reasons why after all these years, the relationship between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth is still so popular. I'll use the 2005 film, my favorite, to illustrate some of these points. Stick around to the end and I'll share a book that I've recently discovered where there is a similar relationship dynamic in case you're in the mood for another slow burn. Not sponsored. But let's get back to Pride and Prejudice. Do you believe what you resist persists? I've heard this said by a couple of people, but I think it's quite comical how we see this in Pride and Prejudice. At the start of the film, we see Lizzie nonchalant as her sister's dream of being swept away by a wealthy man. Jane even tells her,
"One of these days, Lizzie, someone will catch your eye, and then you'll have to watch your tongue."
Literally seconds later, Mr. Darcy enters, and they play into this so well by capturing the way both Elizabeth and Darcy do a double take. I've watched this film many times, and the more I watch it, the more I seem to pick up areas in the film where Darcy can't keep his eyes off Elizabeth, and even though she tries to play it classy, she can't help her eyes from gravitating towards him. It's beautifully set up, because for large parts of the film, we see them trying to bounce their eyes from connecting, and then at the end of the film, they stare straight into each other's souls. So Jane was right. What Lizzie resisted, persisted. Let's build on this. Seriously now, how many times did you find yourself catching your breath at a look, a dance, or a touch between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth? These moments build up throughout the film, but one of my personal favorites has to be Mr. Darcy's hand flicks.
Mr. Darcy?
Miss Elizabeth?
As he walks away, he flexes his hand, creating tension, but also giving us a look inside with how he's wrestling with his feelings for Elizabeth. Fun fact, in an interview on NPR's Fresh Air, 2005's Mr. Darcy revealed that the hand flex wasn't originally scripted. It was just something he did in rehearsal that the director picked up on and then zoomed into.
Was this planned all along, that shot?
No, it's credit to Joe, because I think he doesn't miss a trick, and he's so alive to things, and he saw me do it in a rehearsal or a take, and I remember him just going, "Get that."
Well done, 2005 Pride and Prejudice. Great moment. In the film, it's clear that back in those days, it was way too intimate to kiss if you were dating. So small moments like holding onto a hand for a beat longer than you're supposed to could evoke some strong emotions. There's something remarkably innocent yet powerful in these small moments that build intimacy and connection. But now I also have to ask you if you were taken by how similar yet different their personalities were. They're both stubborn. Elizabeth speaks to this when she tries to convince her father why she and Mr. Darcy should marry.
He and I are so similar. We're both so stubborn.
However, where Elizabeth can walk into a room and feel right at home, Mr. Darcy struggles.
I do not have the talent of conversing easily with people I have never met before.
He is introverted, and this could be confused with him being standoffish, but the poor guy, his parents have died and he's inherited a huge responsibility of not only looking after the giant house, but also his sister, and fighting off all of the men who are trying to court her for the wrong reasons. The point is, their personalities are very different. But here's what makes Mr. Darcy's character so alluring. He puts himself out there for Elizabeth.
Will you dance, Mr. Darcy?
Not if I can help it. So what do you recommend to encourage affection?
Dancing.
He gets himself on the dance floor for her.
May I have the next dance, Miss Elizabeth?
May.
He makes small talk for her.
I'm in Devonshire with my aunt and uncle.
And are you having a pleasant trip?
Very pleasant.
And that's just some of the small ways in which he gets out of his comfort zone for Elizabeth. We won't even get into the big gestures, but the beauty of this relationship is that Mr. Darcy doesn't expect Elizabeth to conform, change, or withdraw just because he's a little introverted. What he does is accept Elizabeth for who she is, and then he tears down his walls so that he can turn into the type of man that lets Elizabeth shine. He's not someone that dims her light. That's beautiful. Men, take notes. Finally, there are moments in the film where Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are brutally honest with each other. This is not common at the start of most relationships. In the rain scene, he brings up her class, her embarrassing family, and he admits to stopping his best friend from marrying her sister. That's a lot of honesty. And who can forget the comments he made on her appearance at the start of the film?
But her sister Elizabeth is very agreeable.
Perfectly tolerable, I dare say. Not handsome enough to tempt me.
But Elizabeth dishes it right back. She calls him proud, she calls him selfish.
From the first moment I met you, your arrogance and conceit, your selfish disdain for the feelings of others made me realize that you were the last man in the world I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
Can I just point out that this is another example of where Lizzie will later bite her tongue because of a statement she's fairly confident in at the moment. It's beautifully set up. But even after all of these harsh statements, the two still come together at the end, and it's beautiful because they fully accept each other for who they are and for what they've said in the past. It's romantic because it's a real relationship. Sure, they may not have started off on the right foot, but through the entirety of the film, we see them grow as individuals, and then they end up back together as two people who are open to change, growth, and forgiveness.
I've been nonsensical. He's been a fool about Jane, about so many other things, but then so have I.
And even though the film was set many years ago, it's still relevant today because who doesn't love seeing a strong woman being given the space to speak her mind and a man that's not intimidated by her? Instead of throwing water on her flame, Mr. Darcy fans her flame. And that's not only romantic, it's an ideal of what normal should look like. But seeing how they overcome their individual challenges, as well as how they both grow individually throughout the film, results in a beautiful relationship developing. A classic, some would say. But those are some of the reasons why I feel the relationship is still so popular after all of these years. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you feel I've missed any reasons. I'd love to hear from you. And then as promised, I did tell you I would share a book I recently read where I totally got Mr. Darcy vibes, and that is The Flat Share. My friend recommended this book to me, and the male love interest, he's also quite introverted, and seeing the way his character develops reminded me quite a bit of Mr. Darcy's storyline. They're very different. He's a fresh character, unique. But it's been a while since I've enjoyed a book so much. Finally, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content from me. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.